The cross is not a symbol for weak men, nor a decoration for timid faith. It is the throne where authority was purchased with blood, and until a believer sees this, faith will remain fragile and hesitant. Many kneel at the cross asking for comfort, but few stand before it to receive power. The moment you understand that the cross was not Christ's defeat, but his declaration of dominion, everything within you shifts. Weak faith trembles because it looks at circumstances. Authority speaks because it looks at the finished work. When the cross grips your spirit, fear loses its language and faith finds its voice. You were never meant to admire the cross from a distance. You were meant to live from it. Weak faith is not cured by more effort, but by clearer revelation. The cross reveals what no sermon can fully explain and no emotion can replace. It announces that sin was judged, Satan was stripped, and death was conquered in one eternal act. When faith sees this clearly, it stops begging and starts commanding. The believer who knows the cross does not argue with darkness, he enforces victory. Authority flows naturally where the cross is understood, because heaven backs what the blood has sealed. Faith grows bold when it realizes it is standing on legal ground purchased by Christ himself. The cross crushes self-reliance before it releases divine authority. Many want power without death, victory without surrender, authority without obedience. But the cross allows no shortcuts. It demands that flesh be silenced so the spirit can speak. When self dies, Christ lives freely through you, and faith becomes fearless. Authority is not loud emotion. It is quiet certainty rooted in what Jesus has done. The cross trains the believer to stop trusting feelings and start trusting facts established by heaven. That is where weak faith is transformed into immovable confidence. At the cross, heaven did not negotiate with hell. It issued a verdict. Satan was not persuaded, he was defeated. When believers hesitate, it is because they have not yet aligned their faith with that verdict. Authority is agreement with heaven's decision. The cross teaches you to speak from victory, not toward it. You no longer pray hoping God will act. You pray knowing he already has. Weak faith prays uncertainly, but authority declares boldly because it rests on accomplished truth. The power of the cross is not activated by volume, but by revelation. When the Spirit opens your eyes to what happened there, faith ignites without strain. You stop striving to believe and start resting in what is true. Authority flows from rest, not struggle. The cross ended the war for acceptance, leaving only the enforcement of triumph. When faith understands this, it sheds insecurity and stands upright in spiritual boldness. The believer who knows the cross walks into resistance without panic, because he knows the outcome is already decided. Many believers love the resurrection but avoid the cross, not realizing that resurrection authority flows only through crucifixion truth. The cross is where weakness was exchanged for divine strength. Jesus embraced total surrender so you could walk in complete authority. When faith grasps this exchange, it stops identifying as powerless. The cross removes excuses and replaces them with responsibility. You no longer ask whether God will move. You ask whether you will obey. That is the moment faith matures into authority. The cross silences every accusation that weakens faith. Guilt cannot survive where blood has spoken. Condemnation has no voice where Christ has paid the price. Authority rises when the conscience is cleansed. A believer burdened with guilt cannot rule. He can only plead. The cross frees the heart so faith can act decisively. When you know you are forgiven, you stop hiding from God and start representing him. Authority flows through a clean conscience and an unashamed spirit anchored in the cross. Faith becomes authoritative when it stops focusing on personal ability and starts relying on Christ's victory. The cross teaches you that you were never meant to be the source, only the vessel. Weak faith tries to produce results. Authority releases what heaven has already provided. When you understand this, prayer changes from desperation to declaration. The cross gives you permission to stand firm when everything shakes. You no longer measure faith by feelings but by alignment with truth. The cross is the dividing line between religious belief and kingdom authority. Religion admires Christ, authority represents him. Religion speaks about the cross, authority speaks from it. Weak faith remains stuck in admiration, but authority moves into participation. When the cross becomes personal revelation, faith stops being theoretical. It becomes practical, bold, and uncompromising. Authority is simply faith that refuses to retreat because it knows where it stands. The blood of the cross established eternal legality. Heaven recognizes it, hell fears it, and creation responds to it. Weak faith doubts because it does not understand its legal position. Authority knows its rights because it knows the covenant. The cross signed that covenant in blood. When faith understands this, it stops asking permission from the enemy. It acts with confidence because it is backed by divine law. The cross teaches the believer to confront opposition without intimidation. Jesus did not avoid suffering. He conquered through it. Faith learns courage when it studies the cross. Authority does not mean the absence of resistance. It means the certainty of victory. Weak faith retreats at pressure, but authority advances because it knows pressure cannot overturn truth. The cross proves that even apparent defeat can be the doorway to greatest triumph. At the cross, God revealed how he deals with weakness. He does not shame it, he transforms it. Christ took human weakness into himself and exchanged it for divine power. When faith grasps this, it stops being ashamed of dependence on God. Authority is born when faith admits it needs Christ completely. The cross removes pride and replaces it with holy confidence that God works through yielded lives. The cross establishes your identity before it releases your authority. You cannot rule if you do not know who you are. Jesus knew he was the Son even while hanging and suffering. Faith becomes authoritative when identity is settled. The cross declares you redeemed, justified, and accepted. When faith rests in that identity, it stops wavering. Authority flows naturally from knowing you belong to God without question. Weak faith often waits for ideal conditions, but authority moves in obedience. The cross teaches immediate surrender, not delayed compliance. Jesus obeyed fully even when it cost everything. Authority is faith that has learned obedience. When the cross shapes your heart, obedience becomes instinctive. You stop negotiating with God and start aligning with him. That alignment releases power without effort. The cross is the place where heaven's authority was released through apparent weakness. This mystery reshapes how faith operates. Authority is not forceful control, it is spiritual alignment. Weak faith tries to dominate circumstances. Authority speaks truth and lets heaven enforce it. The cross trains faith to trust God's process even when it looks costly. That trust matures faith into fearless authority. When faith is anchored in the cross, prayer becomes partnership instead of pleading. You are no longer trying to convince God, you are agreeing with him. Authority speaks what heaven has already declared. Weak faith hesitates because it fears disappointment. Authority is bold because it trusts the cross has settled the matter. Confidence grows where revelation deepens. The cross confronts every lie that tells you you are unqualified. Qualification was settled by Christ, not by your performance. Weak faith looks inward, authority looks to the cross. When faith fixes its gaze there, insecurity loses its grip. Authority stands even when emotions fluctuate. The cross becomes the anchor that keeps faith steady in every storm. The believer who understands the cross does not shrink back in spiritual conflict. He knows the enemy has already been judged. Authority enforces a sentence that has already been passed. Weak faith argues, authority commands. The cross removes uncertainty and replaces it with holy boldness. You do not fight for victory, you stand in it. The hidden power of the cross is revealed when faith stops being passive. It awakens the believer to active partnership with heaven. Authority is faith that has matured through surrender. When the cross becomes the foundation of your life, weakness no longer defines you. Faith rises, authority manifests, and the world around you begins to feel the impact of what Christ has done. The cross does not produce timid believers, it forges witnesses who cannot be silenced. When faith truly encounters the cross, it is stripped of hesitation and clothed with conviction. You no longer wonder if God is willing, because the cross settled his willingness forever. Authority is born when faith stops questioning God's heart. The blood answers every doubt. Weak faith keeps asking for signs, but authority stands on revelation. The cross is God's final statement, and faith that hears it clearly becomes unshakable. The authority of the believer is not self-generated confidence, it is borrowed certainty from Christ's victory. The cross teaches faith where to stand. Many believers stand before the cross looking for help, but authority stands behind it, using it as a shield. When faith positions itself correctly, resistance loses its intimidation. Authority is positional, not emotional. The cross relocates you from a place of struggle to a place of triumph, and faith must agree with that relocation. The cross teaches faith to stop rehearsing past failures. Sin was dealt with decisively, not gradually. Weak faith keeps revisiting what God has already forgiven. Authority refuses to resurrect what the blood has buried. When faith honors the finality of the cross, it walks forward without chains. Freedom produces boldness, and boldness releases authority. The believer who knows the cross lives unburdened, and an unburdened faith speaks with power. Authority flows when faith understands substitution. Christ stood where you deserve to stand so you could stand where he stands. This exchange is not poetic language, it is spiritual law. Weak faith sees itself as tolerated by God. Authority knows it is accepted in Christ. The cross ended distance and restored access. When faith realizes it has access, prayer changes, worship deepens, and authority becomes evident in daily life. The cross exposes the weakness of human wisdom. What looked like foolishness became the greatest display of power. Faith matures when it stops demanding logic and starts trusting truth. Authority does not need explanation, it needs alignment. The cross trains faith to obey even when understanding lags behind. That obedience opens doors no argument ever could. Authority moves ahead because it trusts the wisdom of God revealed at the cross. The believer who lives by the cross does not fear spiritual resistance. Resistance only confirms that authority is present. Weak faith is surprised by opposition. Authority expects it and overcomes it. The cross teaches you that pressure does not cancel purpose. Jesus did not escape suffering, he conquered through it. Faith that learns this lesson stops retreating and starts advancing with calm confidence. The cross dismantles the lie that you must earn authority through perfection. Authority is received, not achieved. Weak faith is exhausted from trying to qualify. Authority rests because qualification was finished at Calvary. When faith understands grace correctly, it stops abusing effort. You obey from acceptance, not for acceptance. That posture releases strength that effort alone can never produce. The cross is where fear lost its hold on humanity. Death was faced, entered, and defeated. Faith that knows this does not fear outcomes. Authority speaks even when consequences are uncertain. Weak faith seeks safety, authority seeks obedience. The cross shows that obedience may cost comfort, but it releases eternal power. Faith grows fearless when it trusts the outcome to God. The cross teaches faith how to endure silence. Jesus spoke little, yet heaven thundered through his obedience. Authority does not need constant affirmation. Weak faith panics when God seems quiet. Authority remembers the cross and stays obedient. Silence does not mean absence. Faith that trusts the cross remains steady even when answers delay. That steadiness is authority in motion. The authority of the cross is revealed in consistency, not moments. Faith anchored there does not fluctuate with moods. Weak faith rises and falls with circumstances. Authority remains because truth does not change. The cross is eternal, and faith that aligns with eternity stops reacting to temporary pressure. This stability is what makes authority reliable and effective. The cross confronts every hidden compromise that weakens faith. Half-hearted surrender produces powerless belief. Authority requires full alignment. Jesus held nothing back, and the cross reflects total obedience. Faith that imitates that surrender becomes fearless. When the heart is fully yielded, the spirit moves freely. Authority increases where surrender deepens. The cross teaches faith that suffering is not abandonment. Many lose authority because they misinterpret hardship. Weak faith assumes God has left. Authority remembers the cross and knows God is present even in pain. This revelation keeps faith steady under pressure. Endurance strengthens authority. The cross proves that God works most powerfully where human strength ends. The believer who understands the cross does not chase spiritual experiences. Authority is not emotional excitement, it is spiritual position. Weak faith seeks feelings to feel strong. Authority relies on truth even when feelings are absent. The cross anchors faith beyond emotion. When emotion fades, authority remains because truth has not changed. The cross restores clarity to spiritual vision. It removes confusion about who God is and what he expects. Weak faith is confused about God's character. Authority knows God is just loving and faithful because the cross revealed it perfectly. Clear vision produces bold faith. Bold faith releases authority without hesitation. The cross is where humility and authority meet. Pride cannot survive there, yet authority thrives. Weak faith is often proud without realizing it, relying on self. Authority is humble because it relies fully on Christ. The cross teaches faith to bow before it can rule. Submission to God releases dominion over darkness. The cross proves that God's power works through obedience, not avoidance. Jesus did not avoid the cross, he embraced it. Faith learns courage from this. Authority does not choose the easy path, it chooses the obedient one. The cross trains faith to trust God beyond comfort. That trust produces spiritual authority that cannot be manufactured. The cross redefines victory. Victory is not escaping difficulty, it is fulfilling God's will. Weak faith measures success by relief. Authority measures success by obedience. The cross shows that obedience may look like loss before it looks like triumph. Faith that understands this does not quit early. It stays faithful until authority is fully revealed. The cross teaches faith to speak even when mocked. Jesus was silent before men but loud in the spirit. Authority does not need human approval. Weak faith crumbles under criticism. Authority stands because it answers to God alone. The cross frees faith from the need to be understood. That freedom releases bold spiritual authority. The cross releases authority by revealing God's seriousness about redemption. He held nothing back. Faith that sees this stops holding back obedience. Partial surrender produces partial authority. Full surrender releases full alignment. The cross calls faith to completeness. When faith answers fully, authority flows naturally. The cross becomes the measuring line for every decision. Faith that lives there does not ask what is easy, but what is right. Authority grows where decisions honor the cross. Weak faith compromises under pressure. Authority remains faithful under fire. The cross strengthens faith to stand firm regardless of cost. The power of the cross continues to transform weak faith into authority wherever it is truly understood. It awakens courage, produces clarity, and releases divine confidence. Faith no longer trembles, it stands. Authority no longer feels distant, it becomes daily reality. The cross remains the source, the message, and the power behind every victorious believer. The cross is not an event to remember, but a reality to live from. When faith treats the cross as history only, authority fades into theory. But when the cross becomes present truth, faith awakens with boldness. Authority is sustained by remembrance of what Christ has done, not by anticipation of what he might do. Weak faith waits for another breakthrough. Authority enforces the one already accomplished. The cross keeps faith rooted in certainty, not suspense. The cross teaches faith to confront darkness without negotiation. Jesus did not bargain with sin, he judged it. Authority carries that same posture. Weak faith pleads for relief, authority declares truth. When faith understands the cross, it stops entertaining fear. Fear cannot survive where judgment has already fallen. Authority rises when faith refuses to dialogue with what God has already defeated. The cross removes the illusion of spiritual hierarchy based on human status. Authority does not flow from titles, positions, or recognition. It flows from alignment with Christ's sacrifice. Weak faith compares itself to others. Authority compares everything to the cross. When faith measures life by that standard, insecurity dissolves. The cross equalizes all believers under one victory and releases authority to all who believe. The cross teaches faith patience without passivity. Jesus waited, endured, and trusted, yet remained fully obedient. Authority is not hurried, but it is never inactive. Weak faith either rushes ahead or gives up too early. Authority moves in rhythm with God's will. The cross trains faith to trust timing without losing intensity. That balance produces spiritual authority that lasts. The cross anchors faith during spiritual dryness. Feelings may fade, enthusiasm may weaken, but truth remains. Weak faith collapses when emotion disappears. Authority stands because it is anchored in reality. The cross does not change with seasons. Faith that clings to it remains effective even in silence. Authority does not depend on atmosphere, it depends on truth. The cross strips faith of selfish ambition. Jesus sought only the Father's will. Authority flows through purity of motive. Weak faith seeks blessings, authority seeks obedience. The cross teaches faith to desire God's glory above personal comfort. When motives are purified, power flows unhindered. Authority is safest in surrendered hands. The cross trains faith to endure misunderstanding. Jesus was misjudged, mocked, and rejected. Authority does not require validation. Weak faith seeks approval to feel secure. Authority rests in God's affirmation. The cross frees faith from the need to explain itself. That freedom produces courage and releases authority in hostile environments. The cross redefines strength. Strength is not control but surrender. Jesus yielded completely and overcame fully. Faith matures when it embraces this paradox. Weak faith tries to hold on. Authority lets go and trusts God. The cross teaches faith that surrender is not loss but alignment. Alignment releases unstoppable authority. The cross exposes the cost of discipleship without softening it. Authority is not given to casual followers. Faith must be refined through surrender. Weak faith desires benefits without commitment. Authority is released where commitment is complete. The cross demands everything and gives everything in return. Faith that responds fully becomes powerful. The cross teaches faith to speak truth without bitterness. Jesus forgave even while suffering. Authority is never fueled by anger. Weak faith reacts emotionally. Authority responds spiritually. The cross purifies the heart so words carry weight. Authority spoken without love loses power. Love demonstrated at the cross strengthens authority. The cross is where faith learns spiritual discernment. Not every battle requires a reaction. Jesus chose silence when silence served purpose. Authority knows when to speak and when to wait. Weak faith reacts to every provocation. Authority moves with wisdom shaped by the cross. Discernment preserves strength and multiplies effectiveness. The cross establishes endurance as a spiritual weapon. Faith that endures releases authority over time. Weak faith burns bright and fades fast. Authority remains steady because it is rooted in obedience. The cross teaches faith that endurance is not weakness. It is proof of trust in God's outcome. The cross silences the lie that God uses only the strong. God uses the surrendered. Authority flows through yielded vessels. Weak faith disqualifies itself by self-judgment. Authority accepts God's qualification through Christ. The cross removes excuses and replaces them with purpose. Faith steps forward when it realizes God has already chosen it. The cross teaches faith to resist condemnation without becoming careless. Grace does not weaken obedience, it strengthens it. Authority walks in holiness without fear. Weak faith either strives or excuses. Authority rests and obeys. The cross balances grace and truth perfectly. Faith that lives there becomes stable and strong. The cross turns pain into purpose. Nothing endured in obedience is wasted. Weak faith questions suffering. Authority trusts God's design. The cross proves that suffering can serve redemption. Faith that understands this does not collapse under hardship. It remains focused and effective. Authority grows through perseverance. The cross reveals God's seriousness about truth. Truth was upheld even at the cost of his Son. Authority speaks truth without compromise. Weak faith dilutes truth to avoid conflict. Authority remains firm because it values obedience over comfort. The cross strengthens faith to stand when truth is unpopular. The cross calls faith to daily alignment, not occasional reflection. Authority is sustained by continual surrender. Weak faith visits the cross occasionally. Authority lives there. Daily surrender keeps faith sharp and authority consistent. The cross becomes the believer's reference point in every decision. The cross teaches faith to operate without applause. Jesus finished his work in apparent obscurity. Authority does not require recognition. Weak faith is discouraged by invisibility. Authority is content with obedience. The cross frees faith from external reward. That freedom produces quiet, unstoppable authority. The cross removes fear of loss. Jesus lost everything and gained all. Faith that understands this is fearless. Authority is bold because it knows nothing surrendered to God is ever truly lost. Weak faith clings tightly. Authority releases freely. The cross teaches faith eternal perspective. The power of the cross continues to work wherever faith remains surrendered. It shapes character, strengthens conviction, and releases authority without striving. Weak faith becomes strong not by effort, but by revelation. Authority emerges naturally when faith lives under the shadow of the cross. The cross is the final lesson faith must learn to walk in lasting authority. It teaches that God's power does not fluctuate with human weakness. Jesus entrusted his Spirit to the Father when everything looked finished. Authority is faith that trusts God even when outcomes are unseen. Weak faith needs proof before obedience. Authority obeys because the cross already proved God's faithfulness. This trust releases confidence that cannot be shaken by delay or difficulty. The cross confronts the fear of failure that paralyzes faith. Jesus was obedient unto death, trusting the Father with the result. Authority is faith that no longer fears failure because obedience itself is success. Weak faith hesitates, calculating risk. Authority moves forward, knowing the cross has redefined loss. Faith becomes bold when it understands that obedience is always rewarded in eternity. The cross teaches faith to carry responsibility without pressure. Authority is not stress-driven leadership, it is spirit-governed confidence. Jesus carried the weight of redemption without panic. Weak faith feels crushed by responsibility. Authority stands calm because it relies on God's strength. The cross teaches faith that God never assigns authority without supplying grace to sustain it. The cross refines faith until it is pure. Mixed motives cannot survive prolonged surrender. Authority flows where motives align with God's heart. Weak faith desires outcomes. Authority desires obedience. The cross burns away ambition and leaves devotion. Faith that passes through this refining emerges steady, clear, and powerful. The cross reveals that authority flows through love, not domination. Jesus ruled by laying down his life. Weak faith equates authority with control. Authority understands that true power serves. The cross reshapes faith's understanding of leadership. When love governs the heart, authority is trusted and effective. The cross teaches faith to forgive quickly and fully. Unforgiveness weakens authority by anchoring faith to offense. Jesus released forgiveness while suffering injustice. Authority flows freely where the heart is free. Weak faith holds wounds, authority releases them. The cross empowers faith to let go and move forward unburdened. The cross anchors faith when obedience brings isolation. Jesus stood alone, yet heaven stood with him. Authority does not depend on crowds. Weak faith fears standing alone. Authority finds strength in God's presence. The cross teaches faith that obedience may separate you from people but never from God. The cross dismantles the illusion that authority must be defended. Jesus did not defend himself. Truth defended him. Weak faith feels the need to justify. Authority remains silent when necessary. The cross teaches faith that God is capable of vindication. Trusting him releases peace and preserves authority. The cross strengthens faith to endure delay without doubt. Resurrection did not come immediately. Authority waits without wavering. Weak faith interprets delay as denial. Authority remembers the cross and trusts God's timing. Faith becomes steadfast when it understands that God's promises unfold with purpose. The cross teaches faith to obey even when the cost is personal comfort. Jesus embraced discomfort for eternal impact. Authority follows the same path. Weak faith seeks ease. Authority chooses obedience. The cross trains faith to value eternal results over temporary relief. The cross teaches faith that authority increases through humility. Jesus humbled himself and was exalted. Weak faith resists humility. Authority embraces it. The cross reveals that lowering yourself before God raises you spiritually. Faith grows strong when pride is removed. The cross shows that authority is not measured by outward success. Jesus looked defeated yet secured ultimate victory. Weak faith judges by appearance. Authority trusts God's unseen work. Faith anchored in the cross remains confident even when results are not immediately visible. The cross releases courage to confront injustice without hatred. Jesus faced injustice with righteousness. Authority speaks truth without venom. Weak faith reacts emotionally. Authority responds spiritually. The cross teaches faith to stand firm while remaining pure in heart. The cross teaches faith to finish well. Jesus completed his assignment fully. Authority perseveres to the end. Weak faith quits under pressure. Authority continues because obedience matters more than comfort. The cross inspires faith to remain faithful until the work is done. The cross secures faith against disappointment in people. Jesus was betrayed, yet remained obedient. Authority is not shattered by human failure. Weak faith is discouraged by betrayal. Authority remains focused on God's purpose. The cross teaches faith where to place trust securely. The cross calls faith into lifelong surrender, not momentary commitment. Authority grows through continual alignment. Weak faith desires quick results. Authority embraces long obedience. The cross becomes a daily reference point, keeping faith steady and effective. The cross transforms fear of death into confidence in life. Jesus faced death and conquered it. Authority lives fearlessly because death no longer rules. Weak faith fears loss. Authority knows eternal life is secure. The cross frees faith from the greatest fear of all. The cross teaches faith that obedience is never wasted. Every act of surrender carries eternal weight. Weak faith looks for immediate reward. Authority trusts God's record. The cross assures faith that God remembers every sacrifice made in obedience. The cross reveals that authority flows through intimacy with God. Jesus stayed connected to the Father even in suffering. Weak faith drifts under pressure. Authority remains connected. The cross teaches faith to cling to God regardless of circumstance. The hidden power of the cross is fully revealed when faith chooses to live there daily. Weak faith is transformed not by effort, but by revelation and surrender. Authority emerges naturally when faith aligns with what Christ finished. The cross remains the source of unshakable confidence, fearless obedience, and lasting spiritual authority.